Smart 24, driving business.
Hello and a very warm welcome to the show. Thank you so much for tuning into Smart 24 TV, where we drive your business. My name is Anthony and I'm your host. And of course, this is the point where we analyze economic policy. Now, the national budget is just around the corner. The reading is just a few hours from now. And of course, many of the news headlines are, of course, without mention, the national budget coming in as one of the things that are being highlighted. The budget has been through quite a huge process, and to come to this point, there's been a lot that has been added. There's been a lot that has had to be removed from the budget, and quite a number of things that have been criticized as well concerning the budget. But one of the highlights of this national budget is that in this fiscal year, the coming fiscal year, 2023-2024, the Uganda Revenue Authority intends to raise the revenue mobilization strategies. And this is to, of course, meet their new target now, which is 29.3 trillion Ugandan shillings that has been projected. That's, of course, an increase of about 3.8 trillion from last year's target, that is about 25 trillion. Now, as we speak right now, the Uganda Revenue Authority has not been able to meet that target. And we are shy of about 4.1 trillion. And we have yet about 3 or 4 weeks to go to close the fiscal year. Is this an ambitious plan that might not be achieved? Today, on The Point, we host Hajat Hasfa Seguya, who is, of course, from the Uganda Revenue Authority. And she is in charge, of course, of tax literacy there at the Uganda Revenue Authority. And she's going to be giving us some insights into what the Uganda Revenue Authority targets and strategies are for the next financial year. You're most welcome, Madam Hasfa.
Thank you, and I'm glad to be here once again, and also pre-budget.
Yes.
What do we have to say? Is there any anxiety? What do Ugandans have to say? Are they understanding the budget? Ideally, that is our work as URA.
No.
Once the budget is read, we have to demystify it, to see that we simplify it to that last person there down, to own it.
Yeah.
Because once they don't own it, then we don't know whether our game will be done at the end of the financial year. However, we are looking at URA. We have about 2 weeks, I would say 2 weeks. We are in the middle of the month, and we have 2 weeks. Yes, we have moved. God has been with us. God's grace has helped us move up to here. And we have about, I think, 3.8 not yet collected. But we are optimistic we will collect it because we have strategies on the ground. By the way, we've intensified a lot on field visits because most of the clients may not have the time to come to us. And not only coming to us, but at times more so the informal sector may not know what to do. So we are putting in a lot in the field visits to get them where they are. Secondly, leveraging on technology. We have tried to create simple USD codes that can be used. Because as I had told you, the informal sector is big. It contributes 51% of GDP. And if you don't address it well, if you do not think for the way you're going to develop it or get something better from it, you may not be in the right position this coming year. So we basically looking at leveraging on technology.
Okay.
Ideally now we have even a USSD code in place at your comfort. Star 285 hash. Then off you go. MTN, Airtel. You can file a return. Simple return. Simple income tax return. A simple rental return. Without even moving from your shop. Just ensure there's some money on your mobile number, then it's well. You can pay through mobile number.
Hajat Hasfa, talking about the past financial year, let's look at the previous years. Before we got on the show, we talked about the recovery years for COVID-19.
Yes.
That was, I think, 2021, 2022,
no,
into
the
2023.
the COVID years exactly were 1920.
Yes.
Because the first lockdown was in early 2020.
Yes.
1920, then 2021. Those were the hard COVID years.
Comparing then your targets and your achievement versus your achievement, has there been an improvement? Because when you look at all these years, there hasn't been any one year that you have been able to meet the required target for revenue collection. Has there been an improvement, or we are actually still going downwards?
Ideally, there's an improvement, because even our performance in the COVID years, we didn't expect to perform that big, because the nation was at standstill. Importations were at hold. We were basically leveraging on domestic taxes, looking at the domestic revenue mobilization strategy. What do we have in it? What can we intensify there? In fact, that's about the time when we rolled out IFRIS. That's one of the initiatives under the domestic revenue mobilization strategy. That's about the time we rolled out IFRIS. That's the electronic fiscal receipting and invoicing solution. It's about the time we rolled out the digital tracking solution. They were basically meant to see how we can leverage on collections in specific tax types. For example, when you talk about IFRIS, ideally one who is there knows that you are addressing a tax type called VAT. When you talk about the digital tracking solution, ideally we are looking at excise duty or local excise duty. So with those two moving forward, one, they've helped us widen our tax base. We have more clients on our registers, say VAT. We have more clients on the excise duty register, because we have just made it a point that you can't sell an item that is not stamped. So ideally, if you don't stamp, then who is going to buy? Because I'm going to go in the market with my scouts to look out for items that are not stamped. And I'll have to trace them up to where the origin is. And the payment is a little harsh. It will force you to do the right thing. And ideally, it will force you to, it will help us level the ground. Level the ground. Because normally the counterfeits have been distorting the market. The smuggled items have been distorting the market. It is well okay, you bring it in, but once you bring it in today, the other day, and you fail to get clients, you will know that business no longer makes sense. So we may not have, or we may not be in the position to run around, but we put systems. They just tag you onto a particular application so that you don't have any choice.
No.
You don't. Because when I'm looking at things like, most especially the items under the digital tracking solutions, those are the items that are consumable, the drinks and that. Where are you going to sell them? Which supermarket will accept them? Which hotel will accept them? Which restaurant? Once you can't do it in those three markets, then ideally you don't have market. For me, I tag you from the market so that the market is not accepting any item that is not stamped.
Yeah.
So ideally, I want to see how much do you produce, irrespective of how much you have been declaring in your returns. So ideally, I make a match and see if there has been under declaration. And by the way, when we rolled those two initiatives out, we have seen improvements in the quality of returns we have and the volumes of the productions in the return. Because if you've been doing a declaration of 70%, ideally now you may not have an alternative except to declare everything.
Let's talk about this year's budget before we move forward.
Yes.
From 25 trillion to 28.6 trillion. If I am not mistaken, the previous year we were around 22 trillion.
Yes, we're 22, then 23 point something.
Yes.
Been moving.
And now we are moving to 29. Isn't that a very great stride? A jump of over 3.8 trillion, that's about 16% increase. Are we not biting off more than we can chew?
I would say, because collections are quite tricky. You can even be given a target of about 18, and on a bad year you fail to get the money. But at times there are things God does for us, where people willingly come out. These initiatives kind of help us and leverage everything, and now we are equally leveraging on data, because we don't need to do a lot of running around here and there. Information from the local government, information from cases in Kampala, information from Bank of Uganda, who are those who have been paid through the government system. Then we just marry them with the returns we get. If I see a huge payment, then why am I enticing something that has a relationship in your return? Just doing more of data analysis brings in a lot. Data from National Water, Umeme, normally addresses my rental income. Because if I see you with more than 1 meter, then I think I need an explanation. You have 2 to 3, what happens this side? Are they meant to be rentals? What exactly? So those are some of the conversations that we think are yielding, and we have tried them, by the way. They have tried to yield to some extent. So we hope to put in more of that. And even the field visits, I think they've helped us a lot. When they know UR is coming, some people don't even wait for us. They come by themselves. So I'm getting more voluntary compliance, because my sensitizations are meant to drive voluntary compliance, so that the cost of getting that revenue is a little reduced. I don't need to put in a lot, to move a lot, this and that. I basically get what I need, because I have equipped these clients of ours. We have done some system improvements. And at the end of the day, with the massive tax education, ideally one says, why don't I comply? When I compute my taxes, say for small businesses, I'm going to pay about 50,000. So why don't I comply? And I get rid of the headache, the disturbance and everything. Then off I go and wait for another year. So that is part of what we are trying to look at, to see. I think, hope, God willing, next year, next financial year, 2023, 2024, we want to see that the tax to GDP has to increase, at least to a certain extent. It may not reach the 18, but it is a process of improvement to see whether we can basically reach there.
What's the implication of the tax to GDP ratio to a layman? Why is it important for us to look at taxes in comparison with our gross domestic product?
To simplify it to a layman, as a country, one, you look at your population. And when you look at your population, however millions they are, but they are all not contributing to tax. I look at my tax register, those who are contributing to tax. When I look at the register, what are the activities, what are they bringing out in terms of taxes when I compare it to, say, the population that I have? Can the country be able to sustain its budget as I move on? Because if the country is able to sustain a budget, then ideally we will not need any external borrowing, not even internal borrowing. So that is what a layman needs. But maybe the other thing you would say in check that probably we need to check the expenditures. Because ideally, wherever we pass there, the clientele are telling us, yes, we pay, but the expenditure is not in tandem with probably the problems we have as a country or the challenges. So ideally, also that needs to be checked. I'm very hopeful, at least next financial year, we may be better. Yes, it's a handful of about 29.3 trillion Yes, but all put into God's hands, I guess we'll be there. And our clients, at least they've supported us, because we didn't even expect to be where we are. We're about now we are about 22 point something trillion. We have about 3 point something to close the gap. So we are looking at these 2 weeks, intensifying field work, intensifying tax education, simplifying the services, prolonging working hours to see that our clients can get us in office even after 5, even on weekends, to see that we can probably be better. And maybe leveraging on collaborations, because as I speak here, we have a number of collaborations, but the biggest that I am yet to talk about is the Taxpayer Register Expansion Program. It's a collaboration that has helped us as URA1 to widen the tax base. Because numbers speak. Widening the tax base, and widening the tax base with informed decisions of registration. Because if I'm leveraging on data from Ministry of Local Government, from KCCA, from my colleagues in URSB, I think we will be there. Because if you're paying for a trading license, then what happens here in income tax? That means you're trading. It's clear proof you're trading. So that definitely helps us. If you're paying property tax in local government or KCCA, then what happens to my rental income tax? So one has to lead to another.
Yes.
If you're doing a good analysis of facts.
So we want to take a very short breather, but we're going to pick up the discussion from talking about the taxpayers outside the taxman's fold. We have data showing that at least 5.8 million potential taxpayers remain outside your fold. And currently we have about 3.2 million people that are actually paying taxes.
Yes.
What do you have in plan to ensure that you increase especially the number of taxpayers? Because we know the potential is there, but probably some people are out there out of ignorance, not able to pay taxes, or any other encumbrances that could be actually holding them back. We are talking the Uganda Revenue Authority targets for the next financial year and some strategies that are going to be put in place, that are already in place, maybe, to see that we meet these targets. I'm talking to Hajat Hasfa. We take a very short break. We return shortly. Stay with us.